Her life would never be the same again. What she was about to find that day would haunt the town and all its residents forever. Among the old, ancient trees, far from the beaten path, in a place no one had visited in years, something was wrong. Something strange, unnatural, that instantly evoked a sense of unease, as if the place itself held some terrible secret. What else was hidden beneath that earth? Who carved those names on the stone? What kind of secret was buried along with those items? These questions hung in the air like a heavy fog, thickening with each passing minute. But to truly understand, to the depths of our souls, what really happened, we need to go back to that year, to 2012. The beginning of summer in the small, quiet town of Vishnevka, nestled comfortably among dense forests and gentle hills. The sun shone warmly on the old, well-kept houses. Birds sang their songs in the branches of the trees, and life flowed smoothly and peacefully, like a river on a summer day. The Smirnov family, Father Alexei, a master carpenter, Mother Elena, an elementary school teacher, and their two children, 8-year-old Kirill and 5-year-old Sophia, was one of the most respected and beloved in the town. They lived in an old, cozy house on the very edge of town, known for its lush garden full of apple and cherry trees, and a creaky gate that greeted every guest with a unique, familiar sound. Alexei, with his strong, calloused hands, could work wonders with wood, creating furniture that became part of family history. Elena, with her kind eyes, was the heart of the school, and her students adored her for her kindness, patience, and ability to explain the most complex things in simple, understandable terms. They were an ordinary, happy family, always greeting their neighbors, participating in all local festivities, and setting an example for everyone. No one, absolutely no one, could imagine that this idyll would soon collapse, leaving behind only a cold, empty silence and an unsolvable mystery. One morning in mid-June, the Smirnovs' house was empty. The windows were open, plates with unfinished breakfast sat on the table, but no one was there. Neighbors noticed this only in the evening, when the children did not return home after school, and Alexei did not go out for his evening walk. At first, everyone thought they had gone on vacation, but Alexei's car was parked in its usual place, and all their phones were switched off, as if someone had simply turned them off and left them. A search began, which quickly escalated into a large-scale operation covering the entire region. The police, hundreds of volunteers, all the townspeople, each with a flashlight and hope in their eyes, were looking for them. They scoured the forests, checked the riverbanks, explored abandoned buildings and old mines, but not a trace, not a single clue. It was as if they had vanished into thin air, as if they had never existed. What they would find next was much worse. After several weeks, the case reached a dead end. The police announced that they could not find any evidence. There were different versions, from voluntary flight, which seemed completely unbelievable, to abduction. But none of them explained why they had left all their belongings. Even their passports, bank cards, personal documents, and the children's favorite toys, which were always with them, remained in their house. For Elena's mother, Maria, her life turned into daily torture, into endless hell. She could not accept their disappearance. Every night, she left the light on in their room, hoping they would return. She talked to their photographs, telling them how much she missed them and how much she had to tell them. It became her ritual, her only consolation, her last hope. She just waited. Her heart was filled with hope and pain that did not subside for a minute. For years passed, for long, agonizing years of silence. The case was closed. The Smirnov family was officially declared missing. The town gradually forgot about them, but for some, especially for grandmother Maria, the pain remained as sharp as it was on the first day. Maria never lost hope. She lit a candle at their old house every week and prayed for their return. No one could imagine what secret was hidden in that room. In 2016, in the height of summer, a young tourist named Anna went hiking along a little-known forest trail that, according to rumors, passed by old, abandoned mines. She was an experienced traveler and loved exploring untouched nature, getting away from civilization and noisy roads. One day, when she turned off the main path, she came across an unusual place. The ground was strangely bulging, and the branches and leaves lay unnaturally, as if someone had piled them up to hide something. She started digging. First, she found an old backpack full of children's toys, a tattered teddy bear, a doll with a torn arm, several old pencils, and a notebook. Her heart began to beat faster. Then she stumbled upon something solid. It was an old leather diary, completely soaked from moisture and almost decomposed, but the entries inside were preserved. When she opened it, she saw names written in a familiar handwriting. Alexei, Elena, Kirill, Sophia. It was Elena Smirnova's diary. It contained entries about everyday life, about dreams and plans, but the last pages were torn out, torn with such force that only scraps remained. Remember this detail. It will soon be important. Anna immediately contacted the police. The area was cordoned off, and a new, more thorough investigation began. Experts found signs of a struggle, broken branches, traces on the ground that were quickly erased by rain and time. Everything indicated that the family had not left voluntarily. The diary was sent for examination. Investigators studied every detail, every entry, every hint. They discovered that the last entries were made a few days before the disappearance. Elena wrote about her fears, about strange calls, and about someone watching their house, observing their every move, but she did not name names. She wrote about it in general terms, as if she was afraid that someone would read her entries, as if she knew they were not safe. Someone knew who was behind it, but remained silent. The police began questioning the neighbors again, this time with more persistence than 4 years ago. And that's when strange stories began to surface that had previously seemed insignificant. A neighbor who lived nearby remembered that a few days before the disappearance, she had seen a strange car parked on the street for several hours. Another neighbor, an elderly man, remembered hearing a loud argument in the Smirnovs' house that night, but no one paid attention to it. The family was quiet and peaceful, so any noise was unusual. What would you do if you were in this family's place? Tell us about it in the comments below. The investigation moved off dead center. The police began to analyze all the old evidence again. And that's when they remembered the old, abandoned lighthouse. The lighthouse that seemed to watch everyone who approached like a silent guardian. Its cliffs echoed with memories of old screams and storms. It had been abandoned for many years, but it was there, according to rumors, that the Smirnov family had lived before moving. Alexei often talked about it, about his childhood spent there, about the wind that blew from the sea, and about the sound of the surf. 2 months later, the truth became even darker. Inspired by Elena's diary entries, the investigators went to the lighthouse. It was old and dilapidated, but something made them pay attention to it. Inside, in a hidden room that no one had ever noticed, they found something that made their hearts stop. 7 stone statues, carved from stone crudely but with clear skill. Each was inscribed with a name: Alexei, Elena, Kirill, Sophia, the names of the Smirnov family members. But there were 3 more statues with names that no one knew, and that was the scariest thing. Who were these people? Among these statues, in a niche, were old photographs. One of them was of a young girl, very similar to Elena, and 2 children who looked like Kirill and Sophia, but the date on the photograph was much earlier. On the back, it was written, "Marina and my little ones." It was Elena's sister, Marina, who was thought to have died in a car accident many years ago. But she was alive, and something was wrong. She couldn't be alive, as everyone in town knew about her tragic fate. It was impossible. The investigation revealed a shocking family secret. Marina and Elena were twins, but they were separated at a young age after a tragic incident. Marina, according to rumors, was mentally retarded, and her parents decided to put her in an orphanage, hiding her existence. But Elena never forgot her sister. She visited her secretly, and their connection was very deep. Despite the years of separation, Marina lived in this abandoned lighthouse, hiding from the world. What would you do if you were in this family's place? Tell us about it in the comments below. The investigation moved off dead center. The police began to analyze all the old evidence again, questioning witnesses who 4 years ago had not attached importance to their observations. And that's when they remembered the old, abandoned lighthouse. It stood on a cliff like a silent guardian watching the sea. Its cliffs echoed with memories of old screams and storms. It had been abandoned for many years, but it was there, according to rumors, that the Smirnov family had lived before moving. Alexei often talked about it, about his childhood spent there, about the wind that blew from the sea, and about the sound of the surf. For him, it was a place of power. For someone else, a place of gathering dark memories. 2 months later, the truth became even darker. Inspired by Elena's diary entries, which hinted at someone from her past, the investigators went to the lighthouse. It was old and dilapidated, but something made them pay attention to it. Inside, in a hidden room that no one had ever noticed, they found something that made their hearts stop. 7 stone statues, carved from stone crudely but with clear skill. Each was inscribed with a name: Alexei, Elena, Kirill, Sophia, the names of the Smirnov family members. But there were 3 more statues with names that no one knew, and that was the scariest thing. Who were these people? Among these statues, in a niche, were old photographs. One of them was of a young girl, very similar to Elena, and 2 children who looked like Kirill and Sophia, but the date on the photograph was much earlier. On the back it was written, "Marina and my little ones." It was Elena's sister, Marina, who was thought to have died in a car accident many years ago. But she was alive, and something was wrong. She couldn't be alive, as everyone in town knew about her tragic fate. It was impossible. The investigation revealed a shocking family secret. Marina and Elena were twins, but they were separated at a young age after a tragic incident. Marina, according to rumors, was mentally retarded, and her parents decided to put her in an orphanage, hiding her existence. But Elena never forgot her sister. She visited her secretly, and their connection was very deep, despite the years of separation. Marina lived in this abandoned lighthouse, hiding from the world, living in her own distorted world. On the night the Smirnov family disappeared, Marina came to their house. She was wearing an old, worn coat that she always wore and was holding a bag full of things. She didn't come alone. With her was Igor, the man the neighbors had seen in the strange car. Igor was Marina's former lover, who disappeared in the same year as the Smirnovs. He was a worker at the abandoned lighthouse and knew about its hidden rooms. Marina, in her madness, was sure that the Smirnovs had kidnapped her children, and she had to save them. She started a fight, but the Smirnovs were able to calm her down and persuade her to go home. They knew how she behaved and tried to act cautiously. But as they were about to leave, Marina took Elena's diary out of her bag and tore out the last pages, which talked about surveillance and strange calls. She didn't want anyone to know what had really happened. She wanted the world to think they had simply disappeared. She thought she was protecting them, but in reality, she kidnapped them. She took them to the old lighthouse where she lived in secret, and there she held them hostage. She told them that they would soon return home, but their home was in her head, in her reality. They were her family, and she was their savior. They were found alive, but they were not okay. The psychological trauma was immense, but they were alive. The reunion was emotional and touching. Elena's mother, Maria, was finally able to hug her grandchildren. She no longer lit candles in the window. The light now burned in her heart, illuminating her life and bringing peace. But the story didn't end there. Marina was sent to a psychiatric hospital. She was never able to realize what had really happened. She always asked about her children and said that they would be back soon. She continued to carve statues out of stone, but they had new names on them, the names of people she saw in her hallucinations, people she considered part of her family. No one still knows why she carved exactly 7 statues, who the other 3 people were whose names she carved in stone, and why she chose the lighthouse in particular. These questions still remain unanswered. What they would find next was much worse. There were many dark spots in the story. Marina wasn't alone when she kidnapped the Smirnovs. Someone helped her. Someone who left traces of a struggle in the forest. Someone who helped her hide the evidence. No one could imagine what secret was hidden in that room. The investigators returned to the place where the diary was found. They found one more thing there, an old medallion with a picture of 2 people. One of them looked like Marina, and the other like a man no one knew. It was her former lover. He disappeared many years ago, and no one knew what happened to him. Remember this detail. It will soon be important. The police rechecked the old missing person reports, and that's when they found what they were looking for. The man who disappeared in the same year as the Smirnoffs was Marina's partner, and he worked at the abandoned lighthouse. His name was Igor. 2 months later, the truth became even darker. They returned to the lighthouse again. This time, they found a hidden room that was hidden behind a wall. Inside, they found the remains of a person. It was Marina's partner. He had been there all this time. Marina, in a fit of rage, thinking he had betrayed her, killed him, and then she kidnapped the Smirnoff family because she thought they knew where her children were. It was a shocking discovery, but it didn't explain everything. Why couldn't the Smirnoffs escape? They were stronger than Marina. What was holding them back? No one could imagine what secret was hidden in that room. There was an old backup generator in the lighthouse. There were old, rusty chains on it, and in one of the rooms where they were held, there was an old bed with chains attached to it. They were chained up so they couldn't escape, and in that room there were names carved on the wall, the names that were carved on the stone statues. Marina wasn't just insane. She was obsessed. She was sure that she was saving her family and that she had to keep them safe. What would you do if you were in this family's place? Tell us about it in the comments below. The epilogue was tragic. The Smirnoff family was rescued, but their lives were forever changed. Elena, the mother, is still afraid of enclosed spaces. Kirill, the boy, never sleeps without the light on. Sophia, the girl, constantly draws lighthouses and chains. Marina, the woman who kidnapped them, remained in the psychiatric hospital. She lived in her own world, where her children were always with her. But someone in the town knew. Someone saw Marina on the day the family disappeared. Someone saw her with her partner, and that someone remained silent. What else was hidden beneath that earth? Who knew the truth, and why did they remain silent? It was a dark story that made the whole town think. Think about what happens behind closed doors, about the fact that we don't always know our neighbors, and about the fact that the darkest secrets can be hidden right under our noses. Some people believe that the whole truth is still hidden. What do you think happened?